All right, well, we will, now that we've introduced our candidates, let's go ahead and get started with the predetermined questions. Betty, we are going to start out with you. I'll try to reverse. If I goof up, don't get mad at me. We're all learning here, so not a problem. And the first one is really, what to you is the role and function of the school board?
Well, there are, a listing on the school board side, there are several different components. And these are really procedural kinds of things about the budget, hiring the superintendent, other administrative kinds of rules, getting the best education that we can for the kids in terms of curriculum, all of those sorts of things. I think that the school board also has to look in particular, and sometimes some school boards separate themselves out from the funding agency, in this case the county commission, and the school administration, and have those people dealing more with the curriculum. That's got to be something that's the centerpiece. The children are the center of our education system, everything, and what they learn, how they learn it, when they learn it, and how they're able to apply that learning to real life situations is something that school board members need to be invested in too, in terms of their planning and their advising and working with those people who have more responsibility for that.
Thank you. All right, Katie, you're up.
Okay, so the school board votes on policy. I think the biggest thing that school board does is hold Dr. Robertson, the superintendent, accountable. And so my job would be just to make sure that he is letting the administration know about all the rules and the policies that have been talked about at the school board meetings in past, and just keeping that relationship with Dr. Robertson. I actually have had a relationship with Dr. Robertson for over 20 years. We are good friends and went to high school together. So keeping that communication open is important. And also keeping communication open with the county commissioner, since they oversee the budget. And also I have a relationship with our current county commissioner, who may change, but yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, and just to remind everybody, we've got 2 minutes. So if you decide you want to do a rebuttal, if you need to, you can request that, and that's 1 minute. Okay, our second question is, what is the most pressing issue facing the schools in your district that you would address in your first year? And Katie, we'll come back to you on that one. Ms. Duggan, yes. We're gonna rotate answers a little bit, so we'll have Katie do it this time, and then you'll go. Oh, I apologize. I meant back to her because she just spoke. Okay. Gotcha. Apologize. It's okay. It's all right. Thank you.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Sure, not a problem. Okay, what is the most pressing issue facing the schools in your district that you would address in your first year?
So I think the biggest issue in Hamilton County, as well as most everywhere right now, is teacher retention, getting the teachers the supports that they need. So I noticed that on the budget they did just give teachers raises. So I would always support this, as well as discipline. I can tell you a personal story. I was called in to substitute teach on Friday, and my first thought wasn't, they're not going to pay me enough to be here, because teachers don't do it for the pay. But my first thought was, I know those kids who are in that classroom, and they're not nice. So I just want to make sure that the policies The discipline policies that are already set in place, Dr. Robertson is making sure that those administrators are adhering to those.
Thank you.
I would not disagree, and I will address those two issues in another question, I'm sure. But what I am most concerned about right now, and news coming out of Nashville brought it back to me today as I was reading, trying to keep up with what's happening in education here and around the country, is that we have to keep control of what's going on with our school system and what's affecting our school system. We're being pressured from Nashville and from national parties or groups to try to do things that are harmful for kids. We have to educate every child in this county. That is the law of the country, and it is the right thing to do. And today, one of the things that went through the House, or it was the House today, was a bill that had attached to it trying to track all of the immigrant children. They've been trying to do this for a good while, and now they've got it in something that's going to have to go to the House and people have to decide on. You know that Hamilton County does not believe in that. All the principals said last year that they would not handle that, would not have that. And I don't believe in it either, and I'm really concerned about issues. That one's certainly one we will have to face on the school board next year, and it's a tough one. And there are other ones along those lines, more cultural kinds of questions that people are bringing up from the community that we will have to deal with. So that's what I'm concerned about, is that our voices in this county, our administrators who are wise in knowing our children and such, we need to make sure that we're in control and we're not being unduly influenced by national or state politics or ideologies.
Can I say something about that?
Thank you. Yes, please, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
Okay, I just want to say that immigration bill would affect Eastridge more than most Hamilton County schools. And it brings more problems and questions than it does solutions. Right now, I'm on the Eastridge Library Board, and one of the problems that we have now is that when the school lets out, parents aren't picking their kids up from school, they're just letting them walk to the library or walk to the playground. So, yeah, so what do we do with a bunch of bored kids? Anyway.
All right, thank you. We're gonna switch over a little bit and want to talk about the role you think the school board plays in ensuring students have access to adequate counseling and mental health support in the schools. I know that's been a big topic. So who do we have next? Katie, we coming back? Oh, Betty, I think we were gonna go to you. Let's go. I told y'all.
You're the moderator.
We need a...
Okay, so, again, repeat that, please.
Yes, not a problem. So we're talking about the role the school board plays in supporting students and making sure they have access to adequate counseling and mental health support.
Well, obviously, that has to be run through the school board. It has to be approved, and that has been a big fight this year, and it was I understand it was quite ugly. But we are back now with adequate and the counselors and counseling program that the children preferred. That's maybe temporarily, but there'll be other people who'll raise that issue again. All children need, at some point, many children will need counseling, and it should be available to them in the schools any day. I've had children actually threaten to commit suicide, a third grader in my class, and we had no counselor that year. She was on maternity leave. And so the initial response was by me and his cohorts in the class, telling him that we loved him and we did not want him to harm himself. And then afterwards getting him to the school, so the administrator, so they could get him counseling. That's not unusual. Friday, I had a kid who kept going back and forth between my room and co-teacher as I was substituting. In the end, he had to be sent home, which was unusual. They'd never sent him home before, but he cussed out the teacher in front of her class. And so children have all kinds of problems, and that was a 5th grader. Same thing in high school. I can give you more examples. I know Katie can too from her substituting. We have to have counseling. We have to have that. And the teachers and the families and the counselors have to work together. And the school board has to fund that and has to approve groups that are really well developed for that.
Thank you. Katie?
Okay, so the role of the school board as far as mental health counseling goes.
Yes, so supporting and ensuring students have access to it.
Okay, so a few months ago, there was the retraction of a mental health counseling that had been in Hamilton County schools for over a decade. It was not paid for by taxpayers' money, but it got abruptly ended. And from a counselor's perspective, or just a community member's perspective, abruptly ending counseling is very harmful. So when that happened, I went to the school board meetings and I spoke, and but yeah, so the reason that was made was because people on the school board were voting down party lines. So I think that it has been very detrimental that the school board is now a partisan race. Because if you go back to those meetings and you look at who voted to end that counseling, they were all in the same party. So the role of the school board is just to make sure the kids who need that counseling have that counseling, and that their parents are aware that they're getting the counseling, and that the counseling stays in the schools.
Thank you. Jill, where's she at? I'm going to do an audience question, if that's okay, and take a minute to encourage anyone who may have questions to see Jill. She has some cards we'll throw in there. We've had some serious topics, and I think we are going to go to one that is very serious and very near and dear to our students. Betty, I'll let you take this one, and we are going to talk about how do you plan to make the food better in the cafeterias? That's our audience question.
Well, I haven't thought about this one. I practiced other ones, but not that.
Right.
I haven't heard a lot of complaints from kids on food. They're usually hungry. I happen to have worked in mostly the poorer schools, in East Ridge, East Lake, and that's both in teaching and by choice in substituting. And the kids are often hungry, and the teachers are feeding them some of their meals. The food quality has to be good, and they certainly are more nutritious and more palatable than when I was in school, except for the incredible yeast rolls that we used to have at every school. Those were incredible. I wish I had that recipe. And so we need to make sure that they're nutritious, and we're not just going along, again, party lines. Things have, we're getting ruling coming down from the federal government on what we should be serving or how much we should be spending or cutting off, meals. Our kids need breakfast and lunch. Many of them, those are the only meals they get. And in the YMCA program, after school, grant program that I work with every day, and in the schools, kids depend on those, and they often need the extra bags of food to go home with them. Some of that is provided, particularly I know when I was at East Ridge, that we had once a month or once every few weeks food drives for the families to come by and pick up food. So we've got to have, yes, tastes good, and it's healthy, but it's got to be there for the kids because it's their only food for many children that they get.
Thank you. All right, Katie.
Okay.
Yes.
I like this question.
Mhm.
So when my middle child started school, he was in kindergarten, and it was COVID, and I was so sad because I did not get to go into the building. However, some of the cafeteria workers did not want to come to work, so they were asking parent volunteers to come into the cafeteria. So that was me. And I was actually surprised at the food and how good the food is. I mean, I am kind of a health nut, but this, like, I looked at the can of applesauce that I was putting in these little cups for kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, I bet this has so much sugar in it. But when I read the label, it was just apples. I was so excited. But your definition of good lunch and my definition of healthy lunch might be different because kids will eat good food if you give them an apple and don't give them the option of a candy bar. I think this even goes along the lines of mental health. We can't teach our kids, they can't learn anything if they've eaten a bunch of sugar and they're not healthy in their minds or their body. So yes, I am all for healthy meals. I think part of the problem that I have seen is that in some schools, they set out the food maybe too early so then it gets cold, and so when the kids come to eat it, maybe not so good. But yes, I mean, I've already been a lunch lady, and I would happily do that in any school again.
Great. Yes, we definitely all had our favorite food, so that's a fun question. Thank you for entertaining us with that. So, great. We'll come back to the predetermines, and I'll switch up a little bit, but wanted to talk about something that's obviously been important. We've touched a little bit on that. Obviously, like many schools across the state, Hamilton County has struggled to recruit and retain teachers and qualified teachers. So we want to get on like what specific steps you would take as a board member to address that. And if my little notes are correct now that I've got them, Katie, we're going to let you answer that one first.
Okay. Well, I would make sure that Superintendent Dr. Robertson was communicating with the administration, making sure that they are hiring qualified teachers and making sure that those teachers want to stay. So just giving them the support and everything they need would be the most important thing, and treating them like the professionals that they are. Yeah.
Thank you. Betty?
Well, I've been writing about this for voter guides for the last 2 weeks, and thinking about it seriously long before that, talking with, can everyone hear me? Talking with teachers and administrators over the last year, especially, but even before that, just in casual talk, about this. It's not so much recruiting that I'm concerned about, it's retaining. Because when I talk to teachers, the things that they have told me that are literally driving them. One of them a couple of weeks ago said almost everybody in her school is thinking about quitting and going elsewhere to other kinds of jobs because of behavioral issues that are not followed up with in part. They didn't, but many of them, obviously there's the money issue that makes teachers unhappy, where the board is trying to address that, and they need to do that every year. And there are creative ways that across the country that schools are funding, not just raising taxes. So we need to explore those kind of things. So the money, yes, but and Katie is right. In terms of professionalism, I had noticed, and then I've talked with many teachers who've validated what I had noticed as an anthropologist when I had on, looking to see what people are doing and thinking and what's influencing them. is that they feel they're treated not as professionals, that they are not given a choice of how to place in selecting the curriculum in their teaching methods and other aspects they used to have control over in the classroom. So those are issues. And the enrichment of all the classes and the content focus on what is important core information makes the teachers happy, having control over that and then making sure that their kids have that kind of education.
Thank you. We are going to go back to an audience question. I think this, like I said, we're touching on a lot of these things in multiple spaces. So right now, from the audience, we want to know, they want to know, how will you handle disagreements with the superintendent or pushback from constituents when they arise? Betty, you'll start with this one.
Well, first, I think you have to be proactive. You have to find ways in which you can communicate routinely and be open to talking with administrators, talking with the parents of kids, and and teachers. And I've been practicing that throughout, my time in the school system here, and I did it as a university professor too. But I think that's where you can stave off some of the most violent discussions, I think. Violent, and this may be an extreme word, but verbally violent and disagreeable. So we have to have regular, I have been talking regularly, and I will set up regular times for parents and meetings with those members of the administration of the schools and teachers and others that can come and talk with me. There'll be a set time that each month where people can come. And they also would like to see us expand more time and more variety and more voices, and variety of voices and positions in the open mic periods of the school board meetings, so that we can avoid the major conflicts by addressing things before they get to that stage.
Thank you. Katie?
I think that community engagement is very important. So I know that in other parts of our county, they hold meetings where the school board member can come and listen. So I would like to hold those meetings. I'm not sure if I don't think we have had them in Eastridge, not that I am aware of. I'm sorry, will you repeat the question again?
Yeah, not a problem. Just how will you handle disagreements with the superintendent or pushback from constituents?
Okay. Well, like I've said with the superintendent, I have had a relationship with him for a long time, as well as other members of the school board. But just keeping communication open is the best for any good relationship. Emails, texting, phone calls, and community engagement.
Thank you. We will move to the next question. This one is, we're changing a little bit here, but Hamilton County has a very large amount of deferred maintenance with our public school facilities. How would you prioritize facility needs across the district or in your district, and how would you approach funding improvements? That is going to go to Katie.
Okay.
A lot of the times, Hamilton County is just putting a Band-Aid on something that turns into a bigger problem. So just keeping lines of communication open with the administrators and what's going on in the building. Also, just making sure that everything is up to standard and up to code, and when we are fixing a problem, making sure that it's not going to cause a greater problem later. And this also goes back to county commission and how much funding they are willing to give for this sort of maintenance. So just keeping lines of communication open with the county commissioners and to know when those needs need to be addressed.
Thank you. Betty?
So, excuse me, let me get some water. Don't count that off. Sorry, I've had problems with my voice and with allergies for the last month or two.
We all
So, okay, so give me the question again now that I've rambled.
Not a problem. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, we're talking about Hamilton County and the large amount of deferred maintenance. And, you know, not only in our district, but across the county, how would you prioritize those facility needs?
Well, first of all, the teachers, or the principals, I've been talking to some of the principals, have a list that they have been pressing, and some of them have been waiting a very long time. Some are safety issues, such as one in East Ridge, where they've been waiting for a safety fence around the back of their facility for a very long time, and that's their priority. So we need to talk with the principals to make sure that the school board and the county and the administrators are up to date on what's needed right now, what's most critical. Having them involved in deciding what are priorities is a good thing. I grew up in a family that was in structural drafting here in Chattanooga for more than about 60 years. So I grew up on a lot of building sites and also going to visit major buildings and dams and other places. So I know a little bit about construction, and I don't think that, and about renovations. We need to be in the schools. Every school I've been in, I've been looking to see and talking with people what needs to be done. And there's such disparity in facilities across the county. There are schools that are brand spanking new that sparkle, literally. And there are schools across the hill that have no space and have no library except for 6 shelves in the hallway that kids take books out for at lunch. So we have some major issues that need to be prioritized, and it doesn't always have to be building a new place. Sometimes the neighborhood schools, just renovating is a much better option. Talking with everybody, and again, collaborating with all levels in the county about what needs to be done.
Thank you. Next question, I'm going to go back to our audience. One of our audience members says, you know, testing has exploded since the year 2000. Their mom is an ESL and special ed teacher and spends 40 plus days out of the year administering tests. What can the school board do to reduce the amount of tests and their importance? So just reflect on that for us. And we are going to start this time with Betty, then go to Katie.
Well, last year, teaching reading at East Ridge Elementary, I counted up about 6 weeks of testing that the kids missed classes for. That was not learning time. That was learning to take test time. And I'm very angry about that. When I spoke to another teacher last week, a full-time teacher, she said that she thought it was much higher than 6 weeks last year. So we have to get a handle on this. This is not useful for the children. If you remember back to when you were taking standardized tests, they were maybe one every 4th grade, 7th grade, a few other times, high school. And we don't need that much. What we need to be focusing on is the core courses, what skills we are giving the kids to take out into the community, to serve the community, and how they will be using that for their future families, their current families, because education is not just about one child, it's about whole families. And I can tell you more stories about that, but that is, personally, that, and we have to be able to, just be willing to make sure that our kids have